Hello, and welcome to a mental break. My name is Taylor Simpson. I'm host of the show. And on today's episode, I have a very wonderful friend of mine that has come on and is going to open up about his story and his experiences with his mental health. We got Jairo on the show. So a little
Hello.
insight to Jairo. Jairo, what's going on, man?
I'm just chilling, chilling with all my lights.
Got a beautiful setup. I love
Thank
it.
you so much. Thank you so
Those that are
much.
listening to the audio version only, Jairo is in a makeshift, what would you say, vocal booth room with like twinkly
Uh,
lights and blankets.
Vocal booth slash 70s spaceship idea, like a
Yes.
Star Trek kind of
Yes, I love it.
a set. Yeah.
So Hiram and I went to college together for music 3 years ago now, almost four, which is crazy to think.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, some of those are pandemic years, so you
Yeah,
should
that doesn't
shave those
count.
off.
So it's just two.
Yeah, honestly, it was like
um
yesterday.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we go a little bit back, not too far back, but back enough. We got some cool experiences at Seneca together, and we've stayed friends throughout the years. And he's a fellow musician as well as I am. So go check out his music. He's a great artist.
Stream.
Stream. Yeah, and well, Hyro, I always like to start off the show by just give the listeners a little snippet of you. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Jairo, as mentioned. I am an acoustic, well, indie pop artist. I've slowly moved away from the acoustic, but still indie pop uh, musician. I singer, guitar player, piano player, but mainly kind of like the producer. I love just whatever it needs to be in a song to make something great, and I like making pop that is not just repetitive or um, formulaic. Yeah.
Sure. So none of that bubblegum pop stuff.
Exactly. I want people to be like, ooh, pop, right? Not pop. So
So where did you grow up, Hyro?
I was born in Bogota, Colombia. I wasn't
Ooh.
sure which accent to do, Canadian or Spanish, so I kind of did a mix of both. Uh,
Bogota, eh?
Bogota,
Bogota.
Bogota, yeah, Bogota, Colombia.
Okay.
Um, and when I was 10 years old, I came to Canada. So yeah, Bogota, Toronto, and yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. What was that experience like moving at 10 years old from Colombia to here?
I feel like that was definitely my biggest challenge. Depending, it was a big change, especially because I was coming like in Colombia. I was living in a pretty comfortable, um, I was living a pretty comfortable life. I
Mm-hmm.
was going to a really great school. My parents were working there as a soft so that I could go to a private school, which really has a reputation in Colombia to of being like they give you great values and they give you the best education that they can.
Right.
And I was living comfortably and whatever, but um, we had to come to Canada, and the situation completely changed here. We came here with nothing,
Right.
so I was living in a shelter, which was a very different experience.
Wow.
Um, and like didn't speak the language at all. I mean, in the city that I lived in, I was also lost, but I was more lost here. Uh,
Yeah.
didn't understand any of the signs, didn't understand anything. Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, I kind of had to here. I started becoming a little bit more independent because I had I had that option, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
uh, of my parents not understanding anything either. So I was like, okay, I've literally like one of our hearings for like immigration, they were talking it all adult stuff that I wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So while they were doing all the documents and signing and whatever, I was just like looking at this map of the TTC and I was like, paid, Donlands, blah blah, and just memorizing the
The layout
stop.
and stuff.
So I started becoming really really attached to the city of Toronto
Okay.
just because I felt like it was something I could get my head around. I'd be a little bit more independent.
Sure.
But yeah, at the beginning it was pretty scary. Pretty scary.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a very tough transition, especially that age,
Yeah,
because you're
and
still developing as a person,
mhm,
and then having to everything just change all of a sudden to like things you don't even know, right? Like
yeah,
it's a hard time to go through.
yeah. Like my all of my family was like I had a really big family back in Colombia, and they were like my cousins were my best friends. I didn't talk to anybody outside of my family basically. And that was great, but coming here and then not having any of them, just had my mom and dad.
Right.
I was like, oh, I don't have anybody, and I was just
Yeah.
constantly in a shit mood.
Did you ever feel like isolated?
Very, very, especially because like in my first like I came here to start grade 7 and then grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those 2 years of middle school, elementary school, I got bullied pretty hard.
Oh no.
A big part of it was like
Was it the
my
language barrier?
yeah, my accent, and
Ugh.
a lot of people like there's cultural differences.
Sure.
Cultural
Yeah.
differences. So a lot of things that for the other kids maybe didn't make sense. They would just automatically make fun of me for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I felt like even though I was already alone because I had no friends, no family, I felt even more cast away from like by all the other kids.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. Well, it's a good place to start for now.
Mhm.
Um, just to like give a blanket over Jairo's life for the listeners. um, but yeah, I always like to ask. I mean, we've already kind of dove into it already, but I always like to ask the guests before we really get into it,
Mhm.
if they're feeling comfortable, if they're feeling okay to speak about some of the things we're going to talk about in this episode. Because not everybody's, it's a sensitive subject matter, mental health, and I understand that, and I'm sure my listeners understand that too, and my guests as well. So I just always like to have consent from the guests to like they're on here to be open about it, and they're I didn't force them to come on and talk about their problems and stuff. So my question to you, Jairo, is how you feeling today? You feeling comfortable? Are you cool with talking about the things we're going to talk about later?
I'm growing more comfortable every second, actually.
That's good.
You're a very, very calming person. Usually, this
Oh,
kind of
well, thank you.
subjects I don't really enjoy talking about for obvious reasons, but
Of course.
I'm feeling pretty all right.
That's good. And one of my guests in previous episodes said that it's good that I'm the host of this show, and I'm not saying that to like humble brag or anything. I'm just saying that like
Right?
I live with mental health illnesses on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I'm not like a complete foreigner to this concept. Like I live through it as well. So I think people come on and they realize, if they don't know me that well, but they know me well enough to know that I have these issues that I'm dealing with as well. It's a little bit easier for them to open up a bit about more because they know that I'm also experiencing the same thing,
Right.
or have experienced similar things at least, right?
Yeah. For me, that's a big thing. If I'm gonna talk to somebody about it, like I don't want them to be complete strangers to. Well, I mean, I would hope people are complete strangers to what this kind of stuff feels like.
Right.
But when I have that conversation, if it's I don't want somebody to be like, "What? You're feeling that? What the heck?"
Right. You want them to have some sort of understanding.
Yeah.
It might not be the exact same.
Hmm.
Obviously, you and I might have different illnesses that we battle or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
completely. Yeah.
But at least if we're on the same sort of base level, it's a lot easier to talk to somebody like that than it is, like you
Hmm.
said, a complete stranger that doesn't understand fully what's happening
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
So
Or
that's
somebody
good, man.
that might just like feel like just like always constant pity.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's a thing that happens a lot.
Of
You're just
course. And like,
talking about it, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I'm just like, "Well, thank you, but let me just
yeah,
get
yeah,
through this."
yeah. It's like almost to the point where it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're coming from a good intention. Like this happens to me a lot. Like, and I never say anything bad, obviously. I'm always like, no, thank you so much. Like I appreciate it. So it's always
hmm
with good intent, I'm sure, these
yeah,
people that don't understand fully. they're just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about what happened to you. Like that must be awful. Like I hope you're doing okay." Like, it's always with good intent, like I said,
For sure.
but at the same time in my mind I'm like, yeah, it doesn't do anything though.
Yeah.
I
And no,
appreciate it, but
that stuff like immediately like turns on the fireworks. The fireworks. Poof, the waterworks. I just go up in flames. The waterworks for me. Like I just, if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm sorry you went through that," I'm like, "I'm sorry too." Fuck. So yeah.
yeah, man. Well, no, I'm glad you're feeling comfortable and you're getting more comfortable as this goes. I'm sure like by the end of the episode you'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll have already gone through all the stuff.
I will be, yeah.
All right, Jairo. So walk us through, so like what mental health struggles and or illnesses do you deal with?
So I was diagnosed with situational anxiety and just general anxiety. Um and I've never been diagnosed with depression, but also I kind of feel the symptoms at times.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And that's a big thing on this show that I've realized throughout the episodes I've done with past guests is that like I find that almost not all of them, but almost majority of them have stuff that's gone undiagnosed,
Right.
and that's a big thing too, right? And honestly, my next question for you was, have you been diagnosed with
Oh, there you
anything? And so
go.
you've answered that question too, which is
There
which
you
is great. But I want to make sure that the listeners know, and I think I've said this for the last two episodes now, so I'm pretty sure I can stop saying it, but I'm going to say it one last time for the listeners, just so they know. No matter what way you feel is valid. Just because you're not diagnosed doesn't mean you don't have it. Just because you get a stamp of approval or approval from a doctor, that does sounds horrible.
go. Yeah.
Just because you didn't get a diagnosis from a doctor doesn't necessarily make it official. You know what I mean? Like whatever you feel inside of you, whatever you feel like that is, like if you feel like it's depression, if you feel like it's OCD, if you feel like it's anxiety, that's probably what it is.
Mm,
Or it might not be what it is, but you're still feeling it. So just because
right.
you haven't got that diagnosis doesn't mean it's not valid,
Yeah.
And like it's scary to get a diagnosis because I think it becomes real for a lot of people. And so that's why a lot of people go undiagnosed, is because they just don't want to know the truth, right?
Yeah.
Or they're too scared, or maybe they don't have access,
Right.
because therapy is expensive sometimes, and a general
Yeah.
practitioner might not be able to diagnose you that way. So it's like there's a whole bunch of different avenues, but like no, but it's just one of those things, man.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
But no, so you got the anxiety going on, situational anxiety. Walk us through that. What does that mean to you, or what does that mean?
Um.
Your understanding of it.
Sure. So I could only talk I like about my experience of it because I'm
Sure.
not actually familiar with the whole um situation of like whatever what other people who have the same thing experience. But
Yeah, talk about like your perspective of it.
yeah. So when I got diagnosed, it was because uh like I was feeling like literally in my body. I literally felt like so much tension in times of like when I was relaxed. Like I was going through a lot of stuff at the same time, and I didn't realize that I'm kind of the person that just wants to tough it out a lot, likes to bottle up his feelings a lot. So when those kind of things happened, as they were happening, I was just like, okay, all right, fuck it, whatever. And I didn't know that like literally my body was just pressing it, itself, and then I would just the next day I'd be like I did a workout or whatever.
Wow.
So one day I was just like in a really painful mood. I started making decisions that I not normally wouldn't make. I was just not feeling like myself, and I had the physical pain, and I was like, I'm just gonna go to the ER um, and have this checked out.
Right.
And so I did, and they were like, I got a couple psychiatrists, therapists. I'm not exactly sure. Some
Yeah.
doctors,
Sure.
uh, and they were like, yeah. So, but well, I went through a couple sessions, and they're like, yeah, what you've got is situational anxiety. So I had a lot of things going on at that time. I had recently dropped out of college. I was going through what was soon gonna be a breakup of a big relationship, and you can kind of tell when those things are coming up.
Sure.
um, and it just felt like my whole world was falling apart.
Mm.
For most of my life, I've been pretty confident in myself. Obviously, always had self doubt,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I've always in general just been confident. And at that time, I was feeling worthless. Like I was like, oh my god, I'm not gonna do anything with my life. I'm not going anywhere. This is this is a tragic tragic story that I'm living in.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I like thinking anything confident on myself was like lying to myself almost.
Right.
So yeah, they were just like it basically came down to you're holding a lot of tension in your body just around the all the situations all the situations that are going around in your life, right?
Right.
A lot of
Okay.
a lot of things that build up.
So it sounds like it lives within you, the anxiety, like the generalized anxiety, right? That you've been diagnosed with as well.
Hmm.
And then the situational anxiety seems to me like it's not, I don't want to say crisis moments, but it's like moments that are maybe out of your control a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
And then that's when it like really strikes you. And that's when
yeah,
you get that like pressurized feeling inside. Wow.
yeah,
That's a lot to
exactly.
go through,
Like
man.
yeah, the just general anxiety is that fact that that's how I sometimes cope with tough times.
Yeah.
I just like literally become a rock,
Right.
and my back hurts, my chest hurts, everything. So
Yeah. So you like wear the stress basically.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So do you find yourself bottling in things a lot?
Um, I mean, I
Or like in the
know
past maybe?
I know I shouldn't, so that helps me avoid sometimes. Like when I know I'm doing it, I'm like, oh shit, my friend just asked me how I'm doing, and I'm not doing okay. I have to tell them. I'm
Right.
like,
Can't be like, I'm
that's
fine.
yeah, that's like I've read books. I know this is just not what you're supposed to do. So when I when it's when I have a conscious input into it into that decision, I'm usually don't. But sometimes I really do it unconsciously,
Right. Because I feel like
subconsciously. Yeah,
subconsciously, yeah. I feel like depending on the severity of the anxiety, it can really start to take over.
yeah.
Have you had any moments like that where your anxiety kind of took control over you?
Just that one time with the situational anxiety
Sure.
time. Um, Apart from that, I've there's been like a lot of physical outlets like exercise and that kind of stuff, which helps with obviously that physical aspect
Sure.
of the symptoms.
Yeah.
And talking it out with people has been really good. So yeah.
That's great, man. So yeah, my next question is what has your experience been like or your perspective of dealing with these mental health illnesses? I think we touched upon it a little bit in the
Wait, sorry,
previous
can you
segment
repeat
there.
that?
Yeah, no worries. It's what has your experience or your perspective been like dealing with these mental health illnesses throughout your life?
Oh.
And I try to imagine it like a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Like with most of my guests that come on, I kind of like just walk me through your life from when it started happening till now. So
Right.
like when do these things start popping up in your life? Like these anxious moments, these situational anxiety, the generalized anxiety, like is there a specific moment or is there like a couple of moments that you noticed at an early age if it did happen to you early age? um then like yeah, walk us through like the diagnosis and then like how you've been dealing with it since the diagnosis.
Right. That's actually a really good way to for me to think about it as a timeline. So yeah, so I for my whole life in Colombia, it was pretty living a pretty comfortable life, a pretty almost dull life, but not in a bad way. Just nothing was happening.
Just neutral,
Yeah, exactly. Completely neutral, like to the extreme.
like
Um,
beige.
exactly. um, and when I came to Canada, it was like a deep end of just constant bullying. And I really think that that time that I spent in elementary school, where I got verbally and physically abused anytime that I stood out, uh, it really, really let like created something in me that was like, shit, I should not never be anything more than the ordinary.
Right.
Um, so if I say something in a way that's different from the way everybody else says it, I completely feel like an idiot, and I'm just
Wow.
so I just try to blend in a lot of the time. Um, and I think it's because of that, because
Yeah.
back then I pronounced a word differently, or I found something funny that nobody else found funny, and they were just like, what the fuck is he talking about? And
Right. That
throw
cultural
out
difference, right?
exactly, yeah. And I mean that they probably understand that now, the people who took a part in that, but back then they were just kids, right? So
Sure.
they don't know anything about culture and all that
Of
stuff.
course. Doesn't make it fair to you though.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. But yeah, so all that stuff kind of like started changing my personality slightly. I've always been the kind of person that I kind of feel like I'm one of my closest friends in a way. I
Interesting.
Yeah, like I find I always try to find humor um in anything, and a lot of the times it's just things that are just not funny at all, but I just cheer myself up. I'm just like, oh, look at that cloud, what a dumbass fucking cloud. And I'm just like, I've always tried to hype myself up, but it's
Do
also,
you think that's like a coping mechanism
I think so.
in
I think,
in a weird way?
yeah, I think in, but it's always been like that. That's the thing.
So you've
So
carried this for a while.
yeah, like it's been since I can remember. I've always been like, because I'm an only child, so I never
Right.
really
So
had
no
anybody.
siblings.
Yeah, I never had anybody to like bother and have my jokes with them.
Sure.
I just look at things around my house and be like, ha, that's fun,
Right.
or might explore my own curiosity. Like, what would happen if I rip this? And I ripped a lot of blankets when I was a kid. So
Destructive child.
exactly. So I'm that. Wait, hold on. I completely lost where I was.
It's okay. You were saying like the anxiety stems from the bullying when you were younger,
Yeah.
and you're gonna walk through the timeline at like through there.
Hmm. Yeah. So basically, I'll just drop that part off because I don't know
It's
where
all
I was
good. It's all
going with
good.
that. But yeah, just dealing with that all alone was kind of weird. Then I got to high school,
Mm-hmm.
and that usually for everybody that's a miserable time, for most people at least. But for me, that was uh, a really great time. By that point, like in those 2 years, I had my accent. I because of like feeling weird about it, feeling like I was less than because I had an accent. I
Right.
completely got rid of it. Just like I would watch movies and I would be like, "Oh, that's not how you say blah blah blah,
I was gonna
dumbass."
ask, how did that process go? Like, were you in? Is it called ESL?
Yeah, ESL. Yeah,
Were you in ESL as a kid?
I was. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the only 2 years of elementary school that I did, and the first 2 years of high school, or maybe just the first year of high school. But when I was already like when I started in high school, um, I didn't really need it. I think they changed me like midway.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, just
So you
I,
learned on your own then,
I mean,
kind of.
yeah, kind of like just because I heard how all the people would like repeat things that I pronounced wrong and
Okay.
just bully me. Like for example, I used to say jogurt a lot instead of yogurt,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and so I was like, "Don't fucking say jogurt, you dumbass." And so like,
But is that how you
uh,
would say it in your accent though?
yeah, and in Spanish you say yogurt.
Yeah. So you just do what you know what you would normally
Exactly.
do, right?
Yeah, especially because it's the same spelling, or is it? Yeah. Um, so it's the same spelling, it's the same kind of sound in general. So don't normally would you wouldn't normally think like, oh, I have to switch around the pronunciation,
Right.
and just getting hit with like a bunch of, oh, so fucking dumb, and people used to like called me by that like
Ugh.
yogurt. Although I've always loved yogurt, so I'm like,
You're like, all right,
I would
this
always
works.
yeah,
This
I've
works.
al- I always had
You
it in my
embrace the
lunch and
nickname.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh man.
Um. Yeah. So um,
How was the anxiety in high school?
in high school it was so much better. I I was I was blending in a lot more than I did in elementary school.
Okay.
Now I didn't have a reputation with me anymore. So like maybe in the last year of in like the last couple of months of grade 8, I already had kind of lost most of my accent. I was forcing myself to blend in a little bit.
Right.
But I had the reputation of being the new kid that speaks weird. But in high school, it was like blank slates. Everybody was meeting me for the first time,
Right.
and it was pretty
So
cool.
time for you to start fresh, basically, right? And not have to worry about that.
Exactly, and it's not like I want to just completely shed my identity, but in
No.
that moment, I was kind of glad I did.
Right.
Uh, and then I got to meet people who I talked to them about, like I got closer with them, and obviously you can't completely shed who you are. So
No.
I learned that it's not just a normal mechanism to just make fun of other cultures and all that kind of stuff. There's people out there that are like, oh, I don't get it, but that really sucks, or I'm glad you were able to figure it out. And
Right. So it's like you found more open-minded people.
yeah,
That's good because it sounds like you got pressured at an early age to adapt,
yeah,
and that kind of pressure, I can imagine, would bring on all the anxiety that you've been dealing with throughout the years,
yeah, yeah. Um,
and that
but like,
internalized. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, like in high school, a lot of people are figuring a lot of stuff about themselves, about
Yeah.
their sexuality and that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people in high school were a little bit more developed to understand that
Sure.
we're not all supposed to be the same, um, and it's okay to kind of stand out a little bit,
And
or
be different.
yeah, exactly, even if it
Yeah.
makes no sense at all.
All right, man. Well, thank you for that. This next segment is something I call the real reels.
Ooh, ooh,
It's a bit of the darker,
oh,
the deep dark web of this podcast.
okay,
And before we started rolling, I know you said that, you know, boundaries are sensitive for you. So I never push anybody in this segment. You can go as far as you want, or as light as you. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to bring up to talk about is totally up to you.
Mhm.
But this is just where like it's called the real reels because I like to. It's a real. It's raw. Like this is the shit that no one talks about on a regular day.
Okay.
Or like should talk about more on a regular day.
Mm-hmm.
So to kick off the real reels, what are some of the darkest or hardest moments that you faced in dealing with your mental health illness over the years?
Okay, that's actually I feel like I could actually list them pretty okay.
Okay.
So coming to Canada and like basically losing, not actually, but losing all my family and not being able to be with them. Um, then after that, high school was pretty great. Oh well, obviously the bullying. Um,
Yeah.
that was really the peak, I think. Then after high school was pretty okay. Then after that, it was just that whole thing about the breakup, which in contrast with other things, doesn't feel as big now.
Right. But at
But
the time,
at that time, I was like, this is a person that like has really understood me for every part of who I am.
right.
And I was like, oh shit, what the hell am I doing now?
And you said you
That
dropped out of college too, right?
that like
Did you drop
literally
out of
was
Seneca?
I did it in our program. Yeah,
Yeah. And
I did.
when we were together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so like there was a strike
Yes, that's right.
and they were like, "We'll give back your tuition if you decide to drop out." I didn't drop out at all because of the strike, but I was like, I've been thinking about it for a while because that program was very much like another program that I'd
Very
taken this.
similar to the one you were taking already, right?
I
Or
took
that
an
you had just finished. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'm taking basically the same program 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm wasting my time, but you know what? I've already paid my tuition. Let's just finish this and whatever. I get another paper for it. but but um the strike happened, and they were like, "Oh, we're just gonna give you a full refund on your tuition." I was like, got that check and left. But also I left pretty abruptly. I'm glad I did because I do feel like I was wasting my time there,
Hmm.
but um but I had no plan at all. I took the decision in like 2 weeks, and I was planning to do something else after, like way after. I thought
Right.
my chapter was gonna be at least a year later,
Right.
not 2 weeks
The length of
after.
the program.
Exactly. So I was like, um, okay, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 19 or 20, and have I have no idea of what to do. I dropped out of college. I'm soon gonna be single. I
Yeah.
just felt like completely alone and very. I lost all my self worth there. Uh,
Yeah, I can imagine, man, because it's almost like a restart button on your life.
yeah.
Like you had everything figured out almost, or you thought
Uh
you had
huh.
everything figured out, like you had everything in place, like
Mm,
like you did your schooling, you dropped out of your second because of the same thing or whatever. You're like, oh, I'll just do this now, and like you had the girlfriend, you had at least everything seemed like it was lining up,
yeah.
and then it was like domino effect, do, you know?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Like honestly, from first year of high school to the previous year at Seneca, it literally like it all felt like it was building up. I was feeling better.
Yeah,
My relationship was going well. I was becoming so much better as a musician because I actually was studying and being disciplined with it rather than keeping it as a hobby.
right.
And then boom, 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 boom,
And then
just
it all
all
hits you at once.
yeah. Um,
So
yeah, and then
how was the anxiety at that point? Was it like brutal?
yeah, I think that's the most brutal it's been.
And you said
Uh,
depression too.
yeah, I that's what I felt in that moment, and a lot of times
Tell us about it. Like,
after that.
what did it feel like?
Honestly, like after I went to that ER and they diagnosed me with uh, those two things. I just started getting in my head about it a lot, and so anytime that I would release music or do anything um, where I had to be really serious and try to keep up a certain level of productivity or success, I would just feel like complete shit. Just be
Wow.
like, I don't deserve. Like for example, when I released Intoxicated, which was not that long ago,
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome. I'm doing really well. The release actually was pretty nice. I'd come up with some ideas for it for a long time, so I was like, this is awesome. I'm actually giving it a little bit more than I've always have. But then soon after, I was like, what the hell am I gonna do after this? I hate it. I don't want to do music. Honestly, music has been a big cure, but also a
Burden.
big burden. Yeah,
Yeah, it
I'm
can
like,
be.
yeah, because you're constantly seeking people's approval, or at least to get rid of their apathy, and uh, and sometimes people just don't care.
Yeah, it's a tough business to be in,
Yeah. So
especially if you're battling with mental health.
yeah. So I'm like, I love it because it's a cure for me. It's like when I write my songs, I can let it out in a way in my own pace with my own words, and I can edit it so I don't blurt out shit that I don't mean.
Sure.
I just I can just be sincere and whatever, but also like being successful with it is an almost impossible task.
Making it your full-time career
Yeah.
where it pays your bills, right? I think that's the main goal for any musician at this
Yeah.
point. It's just to like a obviously have your songs be heard by people,
Mhm.
like your stories, and hopefully people resonate with it. I know that's I can't speak for all musicians, but like my goal as a musician and artist is to connect with people,
Right.
but I
Hmm.
also have to realize that, like, in order for me to do this as a career, I have to make money at it,
Yeah.
right? Or at least to the point where I can pay my bills and I can live off of it, basically.
Of course. Yeah. It's
And
got to be commercial at some point. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, there has to be that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then hopefully with that comes more connection with the audience,
Hmm.
right? And that could be your focus, but then make sure you're doing the admin bullshit as well, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
no one ever sees that, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and I like that we're talking about this because I wanted this podcast to be about obviously mental health because it's you know very important to me, and that's what I have other guests to come on to talk about. But also I want to shed some light on the music industry as well.
Right.
And you being an artist as well, and we went to the same college together for music.
Hmm.
There are music programs out there like that teach you how to be an artist. For those of you that are listening, I know, crazy concept. But yeah, I just want to shed some light on like the crazy world that is the music industry, and I feel like people only see the end result,
Yeah.
and then it's gone in a blink of an eye,
Hmm.
but they don't realize all the steps that have to be taken to get there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
in the middle of releasing a song right now, and all the work that I've had to put in weeks in advance of this release is
Hmm.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
just to put out a 2 minute and 47 second song.
And nobody will ever know how much work you did. They'll just hear the 2 minutes or whatever, and then
Whatever, and
and
oh,
they're
that's a
like,
nice song, and then just
"That's a
move on.
nice." Yeah, he probably took a nice amount of time learning how to play guitar or whatever, and that's it. And it's just like,
Yeah,
no, I've been doing all this. I've been posting. For me, posting is I hate social media. Like, if I didn't need it for music, I would not be on it.
I feel like probably the same.
Except Twitter. Twitter's fun.
Oh, I see. I'm the opposite. I hate Twitter.
Yeah.
I have Twitter, but like I never use it.
I have people like I don't use Twitter to like listen to my music. I go on Twitter to be like, "Oh my god, watching the Grammys." Haha.
Right, right.
Like I'm a little bit more comfortable there.
Sure.
There's no, well, not usually there's no images. It's just thoughts and stupid. It's like a diary basically.
Yeah, just shit posting.
Yeah, exactly. And
But
I've never had like too many bad experiences with Twitter.
that's good. Let's get back to you though. Let's get back to the real
Sure.
reels. So we were at yes, we were at the breakup,
Mhm.
dropping out of college, stuff's falling apart around you.
Yeah.
You're feeling depressed.
Mhm.
Um, what was the lowest moment there?
I think it was the day that I had to go to the ER. I've never felt uh worse than that.
Right.
It's weird when like it's awful enough to feel physical pain or mental pain, but both of them
Mm-hmm.
together, it's just I felt like I was gonna explode, and I knew it wasn't anything um anything that was preventable. I don't even know how to say, like, there wasn't any food poisoning. There wasn't
Yeah.
any, I hadn't been injured. I just I knew it was just my own head that was like going crazy, and I couldn't stop it.
Right. It's not something that's like tangible,
Yeah.
like something that's like easily understood. Like you said, like food poisoning or you slept funny on your back or
Exactly. Yeah.
something that could be easily explained, right?
Hmm.
It's no, you're mentally sick.
Yeah. And not under before that, obviously I wasn't diagnosed, so I was like, I don't even know what this could be. Could be
Right.
anxiety, or it could actually be like something like, well, obviously anxiety is something going on with your brain, but
Yes.
like
Yeah.
I felt like maybe there was like a fucking leak or something.
Like a hemorrhaging or something.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is happening? I know that those things can actually affect your perspective of the world around you. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I was like losing myself. I felt yeah, I felt pretty lost.
Yeah. It's the uncertainty of it all too, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm sorry to hear you had to go through that, buddy. But at least it seems like you're coming on the other side of it now.
I feel so. Yeah, I like obviously constantly it's a
It's a
constant
constant
battle.
battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
But
still battle with depression these days, or
um only when it's comes to like big decisions and that kind of stuff.
Mm,
Anything related with music, or you know, I'm getting older and it's
yeah,
not really at the point where I need it to be. So I'm like, or
right.
like social
But there's
expectations.
that pressure again though on yourself.
Exactly. So
I think this
that's
relates to the situational anxiety that you deal with.
right. Yeah.
It seems to me like anything there's like a some sort of life moment for you.
Hmm.
That's when everything shuts down.
Yeah. Honestly, like the pain in the back just starts, and I'm just like, uh,
Yeah, and you just
start going
tense up and
berserk.
stuff. And it's like, do you ever feel like you know it's coming,
Um,
or is it all like all of a sudden?
it's usually all of a sudden. I'm just
Right.
like chilling or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, somebody mentions to me like, oh, there's this program at the UFT. Maybe you'd like to apply. I'm just like, oh God, I'm 22. I'm not. I just took a certificate program. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do with my life? And I just, oh, it's just red.
Yeah, it could be overwhelming sometimes, man. It
Mhm.
could be overwhelming. I can completely relate to that in terms of like having these big life moments happen to you and then like it completely shut you down, or just like not knowing what the next step is,
Yeah.
and the anxiety creeps in and like starts whispering in your head like, oh, what are you gonna do, like you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
it gets pretty toxic sometimes.
Hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have that internal voice?
Um. Yeah. Like with those kind of things, like you're getting older and you're still living with your parents or whatever, and if you tried to be independent, you probably couldn't. I'm just like, fuck.
All these self-doubts, eh?
Exactly, a lot of self doubt.
That's the depression sitting in your brain going like telling you things that aren't really true. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure you're more than capable of being on your own.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I have full confidence in saying that.
Thanks, man.
But it's your brain that goes, no, you don't. You suck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's hard to combat that. But let's transition
Sure.
to the next segment, which I like to call the rainbow segment.
Rainbow segment. Is it? Is it?
Woo!
Last one I was hyped about, and it was dark. Is this also like a dark rainbow?
Yeah, you were excited about going into the darkest part of the podcast, and now we're going
Real,
to the
real.
rainbow segment. You're like, no, fuck this place.
Nope.
Get me out of
This is a lying rainbow.
here.
Tell me
No,
about the rainbow.
the rainbow segment is just basically coming out of the darkness, out of the deepest points of your life. So, like, the bullying when you were younger, that cultural difference you faced moving here at 10 years old and like getting bullied because of it. And, then getting diagnosed with anxiety and stuff. Then having that big breakup happen to you and then like dropping out of college, then like your life kind of like being all over the place and not really sure of what you want. And then feeling depressed and stuff, then having to go to the ER. So, like, living through all that and then, having to deal with it up until now and cope with it and find your way out of it the best you can, obviously. That's kind of the rainbow segment is just kind of like with the process of you coping with it now. Like, where are you at now, headspace? Like, what have you been using? So, like, the first question, for example, is are there any positive things that you discovered or still finding out about your mental health illnesses or dealing with them?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a very basically lonely person. I've always been an only child. When I came here, I had no friends. I don't have any like, oh, my old like best friend since we were five. Nobody. My
Right.
oldest friends are like from 6 years ago or something. Um, and so I've gone too comfortable with that. I've grown to just adjust to that and make that my normal life. But I've learned that I can't just carry all of this on my own. So a lot of I've learned that I have to um, actually putting a lot of the work in getting better and finding these kind of things and saying, okay, you're comfortable with loneliness, but you can't just live with that. You have to work towards being able to talk to your friends about these kind of things. Even with my best friends and like my sister, who I'm like extremely close to, talking to these things was like extremely difficult. I feel really shit because she actually only found out through an Instagram post where I sang a sad song, and she's like, "You've been going through this, and you didn't even tell me."
Wow.
I'm like, I can't. I can't. Like,
Oh
it's
man.
so difficult for me
Is
to
that
have those.
sister-in-law or sister
It's half
half
sister.
sister?
Yeah. So she's my mom's daughter, but not my
Got it.
dad.
Continue.
Yeah. So talking with like my best friends and all that also was extremely hard. I When I told one of my best friends I was drunk, so like only that, like being in a completely different state gave me
Allowed you
the
to talk about it.
courage to talk about it, which
It's
is
tough.
yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying like I condone drinking to deal with your issues, but I'm saying like that's how bad it was that I
Sure.
just couldn't get the words out.
Right.
Um, and I still feel like that, but I feel like it's everybody has to figure these things out, figure
Mm-hmm.
out your tendencies and what your challenges are, and just fight them. Like
Right.
honestly, it's a battle, and you have to treat it like it.
Absolutely, man.
Hmm.
And I'll touch upon the whole friend thing too. Like, regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, everybody needs somebody. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, you can be an introvert and still have a tight group of friends,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't mean you see them all the time. Like you said, you're pretty comfortable with being on your own,
Hmm.
which is a good feature. Like a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
I hate being by myself. I
Right.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I hate my own company.
Mm.
And it's something that I need to work on personally. And I feel
Yeah.
like within this pandemic, it's getting better because I had no fucking choice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that allowed me to challenge that. So this year's been kind of good for me in a weird way
Hmm.
in terms of that. But yeah, there are people like yourself that are okay with being alone or like adapted to being okay with being alone
Hmm.
in whatever circumstance they were put in. But it's super important in coming out of these things, like coming out of your depression and coming out of, I mean, you're never really out of it.
Right.
Obviously, like once you have depression for probably the rest of your life. It's just a matter of making it not control you.
Yeah.
Like it's going to hit you, but knowing how to deal with it and how to get rid of it fast so you can move on with your day is so important.
Yeah.
And like you said, like reminding yourself that like being alone isn't the answer. Like you have people that you can reach out to and communicate how you're feeling with them. And if they're your best friends, they will sit and listen and understand, you know?
Absolutely.
Or even if they don't fully understand, they'll still be there for you regardless,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Hmm.
all you really need to start. And then you just work on it from there,
Yeah.
right? So the next question I had for you was kind of tied to this
Okay.
was have you found any constructive ways or any sort of solutions or coping mechanisms, let's say, in dealing with your mental health illnesses?
Um, I think I feel like I'm a very analytical person. I like to just break down everything that I don't understand. So really, as I mentioned, taking a look at myself and saying, what is leading me to this? How did I get to this point mentally? Right? If I'm having a like a really shit mental health day,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how did I arrive here? What happened? What could I have done to avoid it? Uh, and really just analyzing my tendencies, as I mentioned, has helped me a lot. I've noticed things about myself. I've always thought of like about myself just as a regular guy with, the things that you shouldn't have. I don't have them. I don't have bad tendencies. I'm a pretty chill person. Whatever. I'm like, no, actually, I do have some issues. I might not want to. I might not want that to be the case, but
Yeah.
I'm a human being. So
Of course.
and so I think that's a thing that a lot of people, you understand things theoretically. You're like, oh, you shouldn't bottle up your emotions, or if you're feeling this way, ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
um and a lot of people understand that theoretically, but when it comes to their own experience, it's really really hard to apply.
Of course.
So I've found that just not thinking so much theoretically, but actually applying all those principles and whatever, um,
Okay. So it's just
has
kind of
helped.
like the way I interpreted that was just like finding a moment to yourself, maybe,
Hmm.
and like really breaking it down. Like, let's say you're in a bad moment. like you have a depression bout, or you're feeling anxious about something, like your situational anxiety for perhaps,
Yeah,
do you find yourself taking a moment to yourself, maybe taking a deep breath or something, and then like really just like analyzing it and breaking it down into steps almost, like, hey, how did I get here? Why
yeah,
do I feel this way?
absolutely. Yeah,
That kind of thing. And then like realizing, yeah, it's not so bad.
yeah. Yeah, like a lot of it is just it's actually being comfortable with having that conversation even with yourself, right? As I
Yeah.
mentioned, I'm too comfortable with talking to myself. I do it all the time. I have good and bad talks with myself. I have a whole relationship with me.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's finding that and saying like, okay, at this point you should have talked to your friend, right? People know that you're struggling with this, and you should have talked to your friend about this. You should have let it out and whatever. And now
Hmm.
look at where you are because you just chose to man it out or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because that could turn into implosion
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or repression most of the time, and that's not good. It's just going to do more damage than good.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's a lot of implosion.
But it's not good though.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course.
You got to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to work on that. I think we're all
Yeah.
guilty of doing it, but like it's just finding the right coping mechanisms and the right methods to help us, whatever works for us, because it's, what might work for one person might not work for another person, right? We're all different.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of finding whatever it is that works for you to get yourself out of that moment, to stop repressing and imploding on yourself, and getting to
Mm-hmm.
the point, where you're on the brink, where you have to go to the ER again or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
stopping it before it gets to that point is super crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel at least confident in myself. I don't want to jinx it, but I do feel like at this point I've learned to see myself in a different way and be prepared to the point where I feel like I wouldn't get to that place again, regardless of how bad things are. I just feel like I've improved the way that
Right.
I come at these things,
Sure.
because before I didn't really have any experience with it.
Right, right. So now you feel like throughout the years of dealing with it and knowing what it is now,
No.
do you feel like you got like a better grip on it? You've kind of like managed like the symptoms of it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's cool.
I can't
Um,
I can't really get rid of the spark, but I
yeah,
can prevent the fire. Is kind of what I'm saying.
right. That's a good metaphor.
Yeah, I just thought of it. I'm like, ooh.
That works. That works. It's a good
Amazing.
visualizer for that. Yeah, like the spark is kind of always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just making sure it doesn't actually light up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. I wanted to ask you, was there ever a moment where you've talked to a therapist at all, or would you like to talk to a therapist in the future?
I mean, I when I did the ER, I did go to like
Right, you
I
were
think it was a
saying.
counseling session. So I don't know if, as I mentioned, I don't know if it's a psychiatrist or a therapist. I was worried about too many things at that
Yeah,
moment to
of
like really
course.
understand the whole situation. But I had like quite a few sessions where I just talked to somebody about what I was feeling. They suggested uh, some ways to um, try to treat it. Um, and so I'm not really sure if I ever have gone to therapy, which is a weird thing to say.
That's okay.
Um, but I do feel like it's whatever I did with the counseling was really helpful, and the things I've heard from therapy are just amazing. So,
Would you ever pursue getting therapy?
if it wasn't expensive, yeah,
Yeah, that is the
yeah,
that is the tricky part of it all, isn't it?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
there are
I
there are solutions though out there that are not as expensive.
right, yeah, I would definitely like, especially with somebody that doesn't know me like personally and wouldn't really have a way of judging me so much.
Right.
uh I I was completely fine talking to the counselor, and like um talking to a therapist just sounds ideal to me. I know some people have some trouble with that, but I feel like in that I'd be okay. So I would love to try it out.
Yeah, I feel like people can be a bit reserved sometimes when it comes to
Mm,
that sort of thing, and they feel closer to people that know their story better. But
yeah.
in your case, it sounds like you don't want the closeness. You want that
Yeah.
distance, that kind of like that third party kind of point of view. Like,
If it's a complete stranger, I'll tell you my whole life.
yeah, yeah. You're like, all right, you don't know me, you can't judge me. Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, which is kind of funny because it's probably most people's opposite.
I guess so.
Telling a complete stranger your life can be very scary because then you don't know how they're gonna react to it, right?
If they react to it, it's
You're
gonna
like,
be a
whatever, I'm never
negative.
gonna see you again.
Exactly. They're like, oh, that guy was so fucking stupid for doing that. Think whatever you want. We've
Yeah,
already moved on. Yeah.
it is hard to hear from your friends, I guess, if they said the same
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, and then feeling that pity, as I mentioned, from your friends, it's it's
Does
it's
that make it real for you?
yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
it. I just feel like I it makes it even harder in some ways.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I'm just like, oh man, I it's not only my pain, you know I'm in pain, and that's causing you pain, and it's just like, oh god, this is just it feels like a bigger weight in sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Would you ever consider meditation?
Um, yeah, but I mean, there's different kinds of meditation, so I feel like I find myself doing a lot of things that are meditation to me.
Right.
So I have um I recently bought like a walking treadmill, which
Oh,
is
cool.
foldable. It's amazing, and I don't really walk in quarantine because I'm literally making music and all that stuff, which is also a type of meditation for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And just getting on that walking treadmill, putting on a podcast or an audiobook, and just that feels like pretty much. But I couldn't just not like like the standard meditation, I guess, or traditional meditation,
Sure.
just sitting and not doing anything. I'm too. I
Sporadic.
feel yeah, I feel like I have like an attention deficit or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would
ADHD.
just yeah, something like that. So I would just completely be like, oh fuck, what time is it? Oh my god, oh, like that kind of stuff.
It is very hard to put in practice.
Yeah.
I used to do it a few years ago. I don't know if you know this, Jairo, but I was a drug addict for a few years.
Yep. Yeah.
I think we talked about it in college, I believe.
Yeah.
And I went to rehab for it. And part of the rehab program when I left the rehab center was follow up treatment. And so they
Mhm.
sent me to a meditation place. And so I did that for like about a year. And it's very, very difficult.
It sounds like it.
um, but it's like saying anything though. It's like you just gotta practice.
Hmm.
Right? Like learning the guitar was difficult, but I still did it because I was
Right.
passionate about it, right? Like
Right.
if you see the results as you're going along, it makes it easier to keep up with it, I think.
Do you still do meditation?
Nope. But
Okay.
I should.
Oh, okay. This is your
um,
reminder. You should do it today.
yeah, it's funny because it's come up a lot of the pod
Yeah.
in the previous episodes. A
Uh huh.
lot of my guests have
Right.
said meditation is a big thing for them
Oh, okay.
in coping with their mental illnesses. Um, and so I hear it a lot through doing these podcasts, and I used to do it myself, so it's just like it is a reminder to myself, like, see, it works. You just got to do it.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's not for everybody though. Like if it doesn't work for you, it's not like the golden answer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not like the one size fits all kind of thing. It's like if it works for you, it works for you, but if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are other methods of meditation.
Yeah.
you
For
know
me, I have a very busy mind, and it's not always like dark thoughts or whatever. I'm just like thinking, oh,
Sure.
this shit's funny, this whatever, or oh my god, this beat
Mm-hmm.
would be really good in a song. I'm just like, god, I need to get distracted. I just if I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm just like following the plot and walking, and I feel like at least my mind is it's not completely empty. I don't think it ever has been, but at
Yeah.
least it's not in my life and my situation and my music or whatever. It's just in some other story and complete escapism. Like I can definitely engage in that,
Yeah,
and
that's
it
good.
feels great for me. Yeah.
That's great, man. It's a good outlet
Mm-hmm.
for sure to like get your mind focused on one singular thing versus several things.
Yeah.
You know, do you think that? Sorry, we'll get to the last question here in a bit, but do you think that's tied to your anxiety? These like frequent thoughts that you have, like your scattered mindset, in order for you to like not be able to meditate traditionally,
Mm, uh,
or is it just
I'm
a
not.
factor of something else?
I feel like it's just a thing of my personality, maybe like an attention deficit or something like that.
Sure.
Because not all, like, most of the time, the kind of things, conversations that happen in my head, that makes me seem completely like, no, um
Yeah.
like the voices going on in my head are not actually like, um are not negative things most of the
Yeah.
time.
So not like anxious thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just a person that, like, anything comes into my head, I'm just like, oh, I wonder how they are gonna get freaking thing on Mars or whatever. I'm like, fuck, I start thinking about it a lot, and
Just
I'm
like
like,
random thoughts.
yeah, I'm like, is why would Bruno Mars name himself after Mars or whatever, something like that. And I start going down that, but it doesn't feel like an anxiety thing so much. It's just, I guess, a coping mechanism
An attention
for,
span thing.
yeah, I feel like it's just like dealing with the fact that I was pretty lonely in my childhood, so I
Sure.
had to find something to stimulate my brain.
Yeah, you had to fill the
Yeah.
space.
Exactly. And
So
now
you
it's always full.
and now it's
But,
just like, yeah, you've overcompensated now.
yeah, I don't really mind it, but sometimes it can be a little annoying.
Fair enough, man. Well, buddy, let's close this bad boy out with the last question for you.
All right.
Basically, just any final thoughts or feelings that you want to express to the listeners. It could be a message of hope. It could be any advice to people dealing with similar things as yourself, like the situational anxiety or anything like that, or another coping mechanism that you found helps you. Like, just any final thoughts to the listeners listening to the episode.
Well, I mean, I feel like most of it would be kind of a recap, so I'll just do that instead.
Summarize.
Yeah, so basically, like, I feel like a big part of dealing with mental health is not just, letting it pass over you and destroy you and just being like, it's gonna get better and that's it. You actually have to combat it and find the ways that you're lacking, or the ways that you could potentially treat it with your own behavior, um, and find ways of improving that. And that's obviously not easy, because there's a reason why it's an actual problem for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
And another thing is, social media is just completely, it's creating a whole other level of expectations for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And it I found that it kind of breaks into, like, different groups, right? For a guy in blah 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 this age or whatever, social media tells you you have to have this. For a girl, in a teenage girl, you have to be like this, you have to talk like this, you have to feel like this, you
Right.
have to believe this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, be yourself. Don't just be yourself unapologetically, like, just cuz
Yeah.
you can learn, you can improve as a person,
Yeah. We all can.
but don't just be like, oh shit, I should be like that. Just be like, well, why should I be like that? Oh, I don't really need to be like that.
Yeah.
Like, make your own decisions in your head, which is really hard to do. And
Yeah. It
it's,
is, especially in today's world, like you said,
yeah, and it's constantly being fed to you, right?
brainwashing.
Brainwashing, so you don't even notice when these
It's
thoughts are
subtle.
coming to your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, be aware of that. And if you ever feel like the expectations that are being thrown at you don't really match up with your life, be like, okay, am I a bad person because of this?
Right.
And sometimes maybe social media is right, sometimes, because there are bad people
It's
out
very
there.
rare, but yeah.
Exactly. So just think about it, make your own decisions, and grow as a person, but don't just change because, for change sake, I guess.
Right. It's a good point, man.
Hmm.
It's a good way
Thank
to
you.
end off the pod.
Thank you.
I will add to that what you talked about earlier with the whole like taking a step back and taking a breath and really like analyzing if you can. It's very tough sometimes because and then sometimes you overanalyze and you get buried.
Right.
So
That's
like
an issue too.
make sure you draw a line in the sand wherever that is for you because each individual will be different obviously. But if you can take a step back and breathe, because breathing's super important. It's not talked about enough. Take deep breaths, like just because it
Right.
centers you. But
Yeah.
like you said, Hiro, like thinking analytically, like breaking it down, be like, hey, why do I feel this way? How did I get here? How can I get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
communication is key.
Right.
Communicate when you're feeling anything remotely not comfortable to you.
Yep. That's a hard one,
It is difficult,
but
but
it's worth
you did
working
it,
on.
I did it, everybody else on the podcast did it. So listeners, if you're listening to this when it comes out, or in a few days, or a few weeks, or even a few months, or even a few years from now, I don't know how long these podcasts are gonna be up for, but
Aliens are going to be listening to this in
whoever is
4,000.
listening to this podcast, just make sure that if you're feeling uncomfortable, like something that's not normal to you, just communicate about it to anybody you feel trustworthy. It could be a best friend, it could be your parents, it could be your siblings, your grandparents, cousins, distant friends, a therapist,
Yeah.
your doctor, whoever you feel like would be the best fit to communicate it with. Don't hesitate,
Mm-hmm.
because like I can guarantee you it'll only help you in the long run. It may not help you right away, so just know that it's not going to be instant gratification, which again goes back to your social media thing, Jairo. Like instant gratification is a horrible thing that's happening in the world right now, but
Yeah.
it takes time, but you're making the right steps to get better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree.
Cool, man. Well, Jairo, thank you so much for being on
Thank
the
you.
podcast for
Thank you
this
for having
episode.
me.
Absolutely, man. It's my pleasure. Thank you for opening up about your story and sharing all your experiences and your perspective and talking about your mental health illnesses with all of us. I hope people can listen and relate to what you're going through and can vibe, you know?
Mhm.
Um yeah, so Hyra, any projects you got coming up you want to shout out? Any plugs you want to give the listeners?
Okay, so I am working right now on a project. I've released 3 singles from it.
Check out those
And
songs. They're great.
thank you so much, man. I guess specifically for this, it would make more sense to tell you about 2 songs that talk about these experiences for me.
Sure.
So, the song that I released a couple of years ago, called "The Past," talks about my coming to Canada and being alone, being bullied, and all that stuff. And then more recently, one of the 3 singles from this current project is called "Green Pills." Talks about uh, when that time when I was diagnosed and that situational anxiety and just general anxiety and yeah.
Yeah, go check out those songs, guys.
I don't know when the full project's coming out, but it's soon, so keep an eye out.
Stay tuned for that, guys. Stay tuned. And Hyro, if the listeners want to reach out and give you condolences, I know you don't need that, but if they just want to reach out and talk, or they want to reach out and connect with your music, where can they
Love
find
that.
you? Where can they find you?
Um, I guess the place where you could I know I said I hate social media and now I'm just gonna
You're
plug
gonna
my
plug
social.
some.
But
You gotta
actually
do it, man. You gotta do it.
the place for like talking and like actually having conversations that I'm most on is Instagram. I don't post on there as much, but I'm always on it. Like I'll if I get a message there, I'll definitely reply to it. Um,
What's the handle?
oh, thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
Jairo Musician, Jairo Musician.
Got it. So hit him up on Instagram. That'll probably be your best bet to get in touch with the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Yeah, and all my links are on that link in my bio. So
There you go. Click
anything
that link in
else
the
is there.
bio.
Yeah,
And go follow him on Spotify and Apple Music or any streaming service you
please, please,
use.
please, please.
Yeah, go help
Yeah,
the guy out. He makes some great tunes. He's got a cool project
thank you
coming
so
out
much.
that's yet to be determined. But
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, man.
hey, no worries, man. That's what I'm here for. Thanks again for coming on, buddy. I really appreciate it, dude.
It's so nice to talk to you, man.
Let's not be strangers.
Of course, of
Let's
course.
when stuff starts opening up again, let's meet up and play some music together.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. So yeah, listeners, thank you guys so much for the support in all these episodes. I see your comments. I see the people listening. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the guests that come on and share their stories, as Hyro, I'm sure, agrees.
Yep.
So if you do like what you're listening to, please make sure to give it a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Do it.
Drop a review, give it a follow, give it a like, share to your friends who might find this interesting to listen to. I'd really appreciate it. The guests really appreciate it too.
Mhm.
Um, Make sure you drink water, take deep breaths. Jairo's drinking water.
Always. It is really warm in here. So.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah.
hot. Yeah, guys, get vaxxed if you can. That's super
Mhm.
important. Wear your mask, all that good stuff. Social
Yeah.
distance. Stay safe, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Jairo, thanks again, buddy.
Thank you so much. This is such a great project that you're doing here. It's great work.
Thanks,
Thank you.
buddy. No worries, man. All right, bye.
Bye.